And welcome to RTF Sports Talk. I am Michael Buckheister, hosting today's show, joined as always with Billy Hatton. Billy, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing all right. Chilly over here, getting a little snow flurries outside. Doubt they will stick, but nonetheless, man, let's talk some sports.
And speaking of weather, I think this is the first time that it is warmer here in southern Indiana than it is in Texas. It's like 50 degrees here today. It's beautiful. Beautiful day, beautiful spring-like weather.
Yeah, it's freezing here. Freezing.
But with
28 degrees.
28 degrees in Texas, guys. So the global warming is a myth.
For sure.
With all that being said, Billy, things are starting to heat up in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. Rumors of Antonio Brown wanting to get traded, falling out with coaches and Ben Roethlisberger and organization, etc. We spoke about this on Tuesday. If we thought that Antonio Brown was going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler to start next year, and I think we both said yes. As things start to come out, Billy, do you still think Antonio Brown is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler to start the 2019 season?
Yeah, I do think he's going to be a Pittsburgh Steelers starting the 2019 season, only because of his contract situation. His contract situation is a tad bit off right now. They would have to wait in order to trade him. It's unlikely that many teams will be willing to take on that contract as it is right now.
He is owed $22.2 million next season.
Exactly, for a guy that's in his 30s and for a guy that has a reputation of being a guy that's not a team guy. I'm not sure if teams are willing to overpay for that. Maybe you will get a team, and it hurts me to say this, but a team like the Browns maybe that'll be willing to put him alongside Landry and take on that contract, being that we let go Josh Gordon last year. But not many teams are willing to take this contract. Now, do I think he finished the season as a Steeler? That's another question. I do not believe he finished the season as a Steeler. He will get traded before the end of the season for sure.
So let me hit on your first point there. You think Antonio Brown will go to Cleveland, and I think Pittsburgh will do everything in their power not to let him land in a divisional team there because they don't want to face him twice.
I think Cleveland would be one of those teams that would be willing to overpay for him right now, because if they would trade him right now, they would have to take on that contract. The language of his contract changes, a little bit after the season. But not that I think that they will get him, but if there's a franchise that would be willing to overpay for somebody, I think it'd be the Browns, especially after the season that they just had.
Okay, yeah. Now I can see where you're going.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah.
And that's a very good point there. But I am still going to say Antonio Brown stays a Pittsburgh Steeler next year and beyond, and they're going to get rid of Mike Tomlin. I think Mike Tomlin is the key here, because maybe he doesn't he does not have a direct correlation with the contracts and like that kind of thing. But I think if Mike Tomlin went to the GM, went to the owners and said, hey, we need Le'Veon Bell here. Do what you need to do to keep him here. Throw the house shit at him. I don't care. But obviously Mike Tomlin did not do that. And I think he has lost the locker room and in that losing streak that they had at the end of the season here. And with players, Facebook, they're on Facebook Live and Instagram Live while he is doing post game speeches and that kind of thing. Everything that needs to be in house, he should have been nipping that in the butt long ago. And I don't think Antonio Brown would have quote unquote felt entitled to be like, hey, I'm the man here. I'm making $22 million a year, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think at the end of the day in Pittsburgh, money talks more than a head coach. As we're seeing here, head coaches are a dime dozen almost. There are very, very hot candidates out there, and we will hit on that next here. and the RTF Sports Talk here. So they can easily find a head coach, but it is hard to find a talent like Antonio Brown at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree with most of those points. The problem is the talent of Antonio Brown is not equaling big time wins. And I hate to be the guy to say that because I'm normally against that, and I still am against it. But I say that only to say he's not equaling wins. So why not get rid of him? The Pittsburgh Steelers have shown that they really don't care who you are. They're almost kind of like the Patriots organization. They've let go Emmanuel Sanders. They let go Mike Wallace in the prime of their careers when they were still balling in hopes of Antonio Brown. I'm telling you, they will do the same thing to Antonio Brown now that they have Juju Smith-Schuster and the kid Washington. Vance McDonald. They want guys they want guys that they can control. And with Antonio Brown, guys like Le'Veon Bell, guys like Martavius Bryant, another one that they let go. The organization is bigger than any one player, so they will let you go. I think Antonio Brown has played some of his final games in Pittsburgh. To your Mike Tomlin point, I want to believe Mike Tomlin. Me saying Mike Tomlin should probably be fired, and I get it. The question is always, well, who you going to find to replace? Well, that's the case in every situation until that person that gets picked worked out, and then what? So there's plenty of good coaches in this league that can do what Mike Tomlin is doing. What, missing the playoffs, barely making the playoffs, win one playoff game and go home. There's plenty of coaches that can do that. It's not like he's taking them over the edge. It's not like they even been to a Super Bowl or AFC Championship game since they went to that one and played the Cardinals. So there's plenty of coaches that can do what he do. There's plenty of young-minded or young, energetic coaches that know how to coach, just haven't got the chance to do that yet. Do I believe Mike Tomlin's going to be fired? No, not unless they start the season off 0-3, 0-4, something like that. I think Mike Tomlin's job is safe, but I think he probably should be gone.
So, I'm going to add to those points there. I think if Mike Tomlin starts the season, he will finish this season there, because the Steelers is a organization that has kept their coaches for 10, 15, 20 years. I believe they've only had 7 head coaches ever in their history there. Because I think Cowher, he started there in their early late.
Climate is changing though, Mike.
True.
They don't care about tradition anymore. Mike McCarthy just got fired mid-season. He was the first coach to get fired after winning the Super Bowl, since the 70s. These GMs and all this stuff with all the it's social media, Mike. It really has nothing to do with the coach itself. It's social media, because social media and the 24-hour talk, we doing it, ESPN, FS1, everybody talks sports,
right,
NFL Network, and they hear this. They hear the rumblings. That's the reason why the Cardinals could fire their coach after 1 year. The Broncos after 2 years, because of social media. Social media is saying we need to fire these guys. The fans have more input now rather than just yelling for the fans. They on Twitter, Facebook.
Well, let me touch on that Packers situation. When you are going head to head with a possibly the greatest of all time quarterback, and he's still he is still in his prime. I think you're going to pick your in the prime quarterback over a head coach any day of the week. But moving on.
Yeah, but they fired him in the middle of the season.
Right.
They could have just waited. They were out of the playoffs anyways. They could have just waited 2 games.
Well, maybe they were trying to prep that, prep the team for a restructuring type of thing by, firing the head coach and then cleaning house at the end of the season. But
I can get that.
But going back to Pittsburgh here, let's just think about this. Let's say the Pittsburgh fire Mike Tomlin. Ben Roethlisberger has been flirting with retirement for 3 years, 4 years. He retires. Okay, So you keep Antonio Brown, and you bring in a quarterback, a free agent quarterback. I don't know, Nick Foles. Bring in a Mike McCarthy or the Rams quarterback coach, Zach Taylor. Groom that quarterback with that great wide receiving core. Maybe Le'Veon Bell comes back to Pittsburgh. Who knows?
That's not going to happen.
Well,
that's not going to happen.
But I'm saying here, what if everything is correlated to Mike Tomlin? Le'Veon Bell isn't there because of Mike Tomlin. Antonio Bell or Brown is possibly on his way out because of Mike Tomlin and Ben Roethlisberger. If you clear both of those guys out, that opens up so many possibilities for the Steelers. They add that one missing piece, a great head coach, Mike McCarthy, a pretty good quarterback, Nick Foles, along with Antonio Brown, Juju Smith Jr., and James Conner. Hello, watch out.
Well, I like that. I just don't think Le'Veon will ever be there. Le'Veon, I think situation is with the Rooney brothers. The same situation that Antonio Brown had a few years ago when he was on his contract situation. He was threatening to sit out. The same thing with Mike Evans when he wanted to get his money before they shipped him off to Miami. The same thing with Emmanuel Sanders before they shipped him off to Denver. It's their way of doing business. And I honestly don't really think it's Mike Tomlin. They threw Mike Tomlin in there because they say that Mike Tomlin, he sides with his quarterback. Yeah, I don't know if that really has any credence, with Antonio Brown on Mike Tomlin. We've never actually seen Antonio Brown blow up on Mike Tomlin. It's
Correct.
Always been on the offensive coordinator. It's always been on other coaches. It's been to other teammates. We've never really heard that spat with Mike Tomlin. So I'm not sure if Mike Tomlin is actually the problem. I think one, he's probably still upset from his contract situation a few years ago, and then they act like Big Ben never does anything wrong. They shelter Big Ben. So I can understand him from that point, just throwing Mike Tomlin in there because Mike Tomlin is the one that oversees that portion of things.
Well,
Le'Veon, go ahead.
I think they're throwing Mike Tomlin in there is because of the Le'Veon Bell situation. He should have told those players to shut up when they were talking about a player's contract. But he was also talking about him too.
Well,
but I'm saying, so that is why I'm thinking Mike Tomlin is the issue. It's because he allowed his players to talk about a player's contract situation, in-house stuff that needs to stay in-house. And then he is talking about it too. So, if all that stuff would have stayed in-house, I bet you would have seen Le'Veon Bell in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform this season, honestly. So, Mike Tomlin is the issue.
I don't know if we would have seen – I still don't know, Mike, if we would have seen Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell got some really, really, really good advice, and I mean really, really, really good advice on the surface to just the normal people, the people that don't really talk sports every day or talk sports in the manner that we talk sports. Yeah, they look at it, oh, man, he started out – he could have got $895,000 every single game, $14.5 million for the year. That's all they see. Man, that's a lot of money. What Le'Veon Bell was advised on is, listen, you can miss this season. You're in your prime. You're 27, about to be 28. You're in your prime. You didn't take no hits this year. You're in perfect shape. They have to offer you the quarterback franchise tender next year. You don't want to be here anyways. You're done. They don't want to pay you. They've already showed that they don't like to pay their players outside of Big Ben. You can get a quarterback franchise tender next year of $20-something million. We know they're not going to want to do that, so you're going to get your wish and get traded. So to me, Le'Veon Bell got great advice, and I don't think it had anything to do with Tomlin. The maybe the offensive lineman and Big Ben coming out speaking publicly, maybe that had a little bit more, because who wants to go run behind guys that that's supposed to be blocking for you that really don't like you?
They would rather see you hurt.
Yeah, exactly. But when I can take a year off of football, I'm going to get my wish anyways, because you have to offer me another franchise tender, which would be my third one, quarterback tag at this point. Or I'm going to get, or you're going to or you're going to trade me so I can get a long-term deal. So in the end, Le'Veon Bell wins this, and the Steelers really is gonna end flat, especially if they have to trade away Antonio Brown.
So before we move on to the next topic here, Grand Hefe, let's say the Steelers don't trade Antonio Brown and he is still a Steelers next year. Does Antonio Brown pull what a Bell does and just kind of forfeit his money, pay his fines for the year just until they do trade him?
No, because I think his situation is different because Antonio Brown is actually under contract. The problem with Le'Veon Bell was through with his contract and he never signed his franchise tender. So technically he was not a Steeler. Technically he was a Steeler, but he wasn't because he didn't sign any contract. So I think Antonio Brown has a lot more to lose than what Le'Veon Bell lost this year.
Yeah, he has $22 million to lose this next season.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Plus,
and he's actually under contract, so they can actually do more to him than they could with Le'Veon because, like I say, Le'Veon technically wasn't a part of the Steelers organization.
Right.
They removed him from their roster at one point.
All righty. So speaking of players that are still on the rosters, rookies. Since the season is over, Rookie of the Year awards are starting to come out. Defensive player, offensive player, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, Billy, on January 3rd, 2019, who was your Rookie of the Year this season?
I got Saquon Barkley. You look at what he did. You look at the team he was on. He was basically playing with a baby armed Eli Manning. And they managed to win 5 games, just too short of Baker, the other guy that's in the running. But we're talking about Saquon Barkley, 261 carries, over 1,300 yards, 5 yards per carry average, 11 touchdowns, and then he added another 91 catches for 721 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's Le'Veon Bell-like. Le'Veon Bell is the guy that gets 200, 300 plus carries, plus 75, 85 catches. Saquon, 91 catches as a rookie, 352 total touches. Guess what, Mike? 0 fumbles. 0 fumbles.
That's a huge stat.
I don't know.
That right there is a huge stat.
352 touches with 0 fumbles. That's amazing. Over 2,000 yards from scrimmage. I think it can go to either guy. I wouldn't be mad. Obviously, I'm a Cleveland fan. If it went to Baker or even Derwin James or whoever else they got up there, because all the rookies this year, let's be honest, they played their tails off, all of them except for those rookie quarterbacks outside of Baker and Lamar. Really, nobody else. The quarterbacks didn't really live up to the hype, but everybody else did. Receivers, running backs, tight ends, the 2 tight ends that Baltimore got, the defense, everybody played well this year. It wouldn't surprise me if they gave it to somebody else, but Saquon, what he done this year, you can't overlook it, especially coming from a guy like me who said he really wouldn't do good in the NFL. Kudos to Saquon.
Yeah, and I would definitely 100% be on that train if the Giants had more wins and they're like a playoff team. But since they are on a losing team, just like the Browns are, and like all that stuff, you have to go with the quarterback play because I think the quarterback probably gets the nod 9 times out of 10, just because how the team performs kind of correlates of like how the quarterback is like playing. Like I've seen many people saying that Lamar Jackson deserves the Rookie of the Year, and I just don't think that is a plausible idea because he played 7 games. So, I mean, like you really can't give somebody that's played half a season Rookie of the Year. So like that's why I'm going with Baker Mayfield from the Cleveland Browns. He threw for 3,700 yards this season, 27 TDs, and he had a total season QBR of like 94. In the month of December, he threw for just under 1,500 yards, 10 touchdowns, and it had a QBR ranking of 95. And he also led the Cleveland Browns to 7 wins this season, 7-8-1. Many people, besides us two, pretty much had the Browns at 3 or 4 wins tops, if I'm not mistaken. I believe Matthew Lyle only had him at 2 wins.
Yeah,
like,
Mike,
like
a lot
I'm
of people.
mistaken. Yeah.
A lot of people.
Yeah, so
we're saying, can they just get to 2 wins?
Yeah,
that'd be a success. And I don't know what roster they was looking at, but yeah.
Yeah, but so say, let's give the people a benefit of the doubt. They were saying Browns would get 3 wins. He doubled that win total plus 1. 7 wins, and they could have very easily have had 9 or 10 wins if the ball just bounces one way or the other for them in those early season games. Speaking of his best 2 games of the season, yes, they both came in L's. One to Houston. He threw for 397 yards versus a pretty darn good Houston team, and then he had another great game versus the Ravens last week of the year for throwing for 376 yards, a playoff like atmosphere game. He definitely deserves the Rookie of the Year 100%. And just to throw in here, his worst game of the season was against those Pittsburgh Steelers back when they were still trending up. He still threw for 180 yards and 2 scores. So Baker was definitely a highlight of the Browns all season. Definitely deserves the Rookie of the Year, I think.
Yeah, I think he had a fantastic season, and then he didn't even start the first 2 games of the year. So who knows what would have happened? Maybe they wouldn't have needed that field goal in overtime to beat Pittsburgh. Maybe they would have beat them in regulation.
100%.
Maybe they would have beat them beforehand. And then week 2 at the Saints, who knows if Baker was in there, whether that extra point that was missed against the Saints in week 2, who knows what would have happened there if he was in there. Baker is a phenomenal athlete. That's, I called it beforehand. The best quarterback coming out of the draft, the best player in the draft. Cleveland did what they were supposed to do and take him. Just for me, Saquon, for a running back to do this, he basically carried that team because Odell really couldn't do anything.
He was hurt most of the season.
Yeah, and then Eli couldn't push the ball down the field, so they ended up just shutting Odell down. And Saquon was the safety net. Every time you needed something, Saquon Barkley was there. First game coming out the shoot, he showed you why, they put a second round pick on. I wouldn't have went running back because it don't equal a lot of wins, because you're so dependent upon somebody else to get you the ball. But first game right out the gate against that Jaguars defense when they were still the Jaguars, you got to remember at week 2 or week 3 they went out and beat Tom Brady, and it wasn't even close. He had over 100 yards in a touchdown. So, and you can't overlook a guy that don't make many mistakes. 0 fumbles in this day and age for a rookie running back with over 300 touches. Give it to Saquon.
I think that 0 fumble stat, say it comes down to one single thing, one single play, 1 second here, 1 second there. I think that 0 fumble stat will push him over the edge if it comes down to that.
Agreed.
So let's just stay in the NFL here, and this coaching carousel is starting to really take shape, really take form. There are offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, college coaches, all interviewing for jobs right now. So, Mr. Hatton, from the reports that we've heard, who has interviewed where and whatnot, what coaches are the best fit for the teams that have already interviewed? Did we lose you, Billy?
Oh, sorry about that. I don't know how I ended up on mute there. But do you want me to start at the Bengals? I can start. Where you want me to start?
Well, just so so far, there's been about 6 or 7 major interviews with other teams. So from those interviews, what players or what coaches would fit the best so far on the interviews? You can start anywhere where you want.
Okay, so I'll start at the Browns. I'm close to that situation. They had Jim Caldwell the other day. I'm not a Jim Caldwell fan. He's a good coach. Don't like it. Now, Mike McCarthy is supposed to be interviewing for this Browns head coaching job, I believe, on this upcoming Tuesday. Mike McCarthy would be a great fit for a guy like Baker Mayfield, a guy who's been around the block, a guy who's coached Aaron Rodgers, a guy who's won Super Bowls in this league, albeit a long time ago. But we know what the Cleveland Browns have, and they already have a good defense. So that's been Mike McCarthy's downfall in recent years, that he just couldn't put a defense around Aaron Rodgers. Well, the Cleveland Browns already have a defense. He wouldn't even have to worry about it. Greg Williams can go back to and assume his role as defensive coordinator. I love what Greg Williams was doing at the beginning of the season before he took over as head coach. That was a top 5 to 7 defense, was leading the league at one point in interceptions. So for me, I like that Mike McCarthy pick. Another one that I've been hearing, your guy, the Chiefs offensive coordinator, I talked about him early in the season when Hugh Jackson first got fired. I mentioned his name as he was one of the up and coming guys that I wouldn't mind out of that Andy Reid fold. So just Cliff Kingsbury going to the Cardinals, I like that for a guy like Josh Rosen, a young guy that he could probably relate to a little bit more than a Steve Wilkes who was old school and all that other stuff. So those two really kind of resonate with me, only because I think Cliff Kingsbury could put Josh Rosen in a lot of easy situations where you don't really necessarily have to have great players to run to be in a Cliff Kingsbury system. You just got to be able to get open. And when you got guys running all over the field, it's really not hard with the rules today.
Right. And just to add to your point about the Kansas City offensive coordinator here, he has already interviewed with the Jets, Dolphins, Bucks, and the Bengals as well. I believe the Bengals is coming up later this week.
Yes.
But the biggest thing that I want to point out to these teams is do not expect your team to be instantly like the Kansas City Chiefs offense of like right now, because looking at these rosters of like a lot of these players, they don't have the players to fit that system. You need to give him a couple years to get his feet wet, get firmly planted, and like don't fire him after like a year or two. Give him at least 3 or 4 years to get his players in there, so you can have success like the Kansas City offense is having right now. But the biggest thing that I'm seeing so far is the Denver Broncos. They're going to interview the Rams quarterback coach Zach Taylor. That to me is very, very huge, because that is what the Broncos have been lacking the last couple years. It's just really solid quarterback play. So does that mean they keep their quarterback situation now? Do they keep Chase Keenum there, or do they go and they draft a player like the Duke quarterback or the Missouri quarterback, and then let Zach Taylor groom him like he did Jared Goff into a great quarterback? So like that situation kind of has me circling that. Like if they hire Zach Taylor, what is that quarterback position going to do in Denver?
I don't know if they will hire Zach Taylor for that reason that you just said. I think when you hire Zach Taylor, unless, to your point, they're going to go get a rookie quarterback this year, and they are, and he's already aware of that. I don't see a first-year coach, taking over a team that don't have a quarterback in place. That's going to be playing with a guy like a Chase Keenum. I think that'll go more for a Chuck Pagano, who they have reached out to, a veteran coach that can coach a veteran bunch. I think you get a guy like Zach Taylor, you're definitely going to get a rookie quarterback. But I don't see them hiring him before that happens. Or they will hire before that happens. But I don't see that happening unless they already know we're going to get one of these young guys. We're going to let you groom him.
Right. The only thing that scares me about the Denver Broncos is like, what if they get the Chiefs offensive coordinator and say that Eric, he grooms his team into the Kansas City offense that like we're seeing now. What if we saw those two high flying offices twice a year putting up 56 to 54 games. Like how
plus
crazy?
The Chargers.
How crazy would that be?
Yeah, plus the Chargers. That's going to be tough. The one thing I will say about this coaching carousel and all this other stuff is you're starting to see the same coaches get recycled through and through, through and through. It's the same. About every 2 or 3 hours, I see somebody else is interviewing for another job, and it's the same guy. Mike McCarthy has interviewed with just about every team that has an opening. It's the same guys over and over and over again that's getting the same opportunities, which is the reason why we see the same bad teams all over again. Because you just keep bringing your scheme to a different team, and it's bad. You ain't going to change it because that's your scheme. Nobody's going to tell you how to run your ship. So you're going to sync with the ship. That's just how that works. And that's why I would rather see some of these college coaches get in there,
Lincoln Riley, Mark Stoops.
Yeah, these new guys, because the NFL is changing, and you have to be able to adapt. They talked about North Turner this year with Cam Newton, how he had to adapt to the way Cam played. He couldn't run his old school style offense. He had to tell it around Cam, who he has. I don't think a lot of these coaches know how to make adjustments, and they just try to go what they try to do what they do. Yeah, and and that's what gets them in these binds. But that's why we keep saying the same old coaches for every job, interviewing for the same job.
Well, and speaking of college coaches here, the bowl season has almost officially come to an end. There's a couple low tier games left, but then you had the national championship game on Monday. What is your biggest takeaway from this bowl season?
That I don't really like bowl season, and that a lot of teams are overrated. I'm with you, Mike. I don't really like a lot of all these unnecessary bowl games, the Dollar General Bowl. Who really cares? Honestly, it showed me once again, Mike, and I talked about this yesterday on RTS Sports. On Unpopular Opinion. The only people that always make excuses during bowl week are SEC fans, SEC apologists. The people that has those SEC biases. Because, Georgia loses to Texas and they say, oh, man, they didn't really want to be there. They wanted to be in the national championship game where they could play for something serious.
Whatever.
And
get out of here with that. Yeah,
exactly my point. Jake Fromm played. Swift played. Holyfield played. Ridley played. Everybody played. It's not as if, they showed up there like LSU did and was missing like 10 people. No, they were playing at full staff, and I hate that because it gives people, and it don't give credit to Texas. It don't give Texas any credit for pressuring Jake Fromm all night long, making him throw bad passes. It takes away from Texas defense that caused Swift to fumble twice. As if these guys just, I'm just going to go out here and just lollygag it the whole time. No, it takes away from the other teams, and only SEC people do this. A few years ago when Alabama didn't get in the college football playoff and they played Oklahoma and they got smacked by Oklahoma, Nick Saban come out and say, well, it's because guys are already looking forward to the NFL draft, as if other teams don't have guys also going to the NFL draft, as if he would have made that same comment had he won that game. I hate it. And that's the one thing they say, oh, well, these guys don't really want to play in that game. Well, don't play. Don't play then. Don't play. It's just that simple. To just forfeit the game and say, listen, we'd rather not be here because we're not playing for a ring. But to sit there and play in the game and then lose and then afterwards making the excuse that, oh, well, you didn't really want to play. Mike, only SEC people do that. And once again, that's what bowl season has taught me. Another mediocre season for the SEC. And if it wasn't for Alabama, who's probably going to get a second win of the bowl season, the SEC win total will probably not be that great right now.
Yeah, and I have to echo everything that you said, Billy. I hate these mediocre games. I hate UNB versus NIU. I hate Louisiana Tech versus Hawaii. I don't want to watch that crap. And the rankings show this. So So far in the rankings in the bowl season, the Alabama and Oklahoma game reached almost 19.1 million people. Almost 19.1 million people watched that Alabama versus Oklahoma game. You scroll down to the FIU Toledo Bowl, they didn't even break 800,000 people watching that game. This is a primetime ESPN game, 12:30, game, and they don't even get 800,000 people watching that game. So my takeaway from the overall bowl season is we need to expand the playoff to 8 teams. We need to get that Michigan in there because think about this: if Michigan was quote unquote fully staffed, because these players don't want to play, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I don't think they would have beaten Florida. People want to see that game. It shows 8.4 million people tuned in to that game. The LSU versus UCF game, 8.5 million people turned into that game. And we talked about the Texas Georgia game. 14 million people turned in to that game. So the NCAA is all about making money at the end of the day. I get it. We all like to line our pockets, but take away out all these low tier games. Okay, I don't want to see the Birmingham game. I don't want to see the Dollar General Bowl. I don't want to see the Baku Ratoon Bowl, whatever the heck that is.
The Belt Bowl. And
yeah. So take that.
Going to the Pool Bowl game. Yeah.
It's exactly. Yes, I get it. We want to extend that offer to teams that have a good season. 6-6 is not a good season. You need at least 7 to 8 wins to make a bowl. I feel if they up the playoffs to 8 games or 8 teams, think about the rankings that they would have had this season. Look at the top games this season here. Alabama versus Georgia. 18 million people turned in to that game. Are you telling me that 18 million people wouldn't have tuned into a number 1 Alabama versus a number 8 seed Georgia? They would have loved every minute of it. Michigan versus Ohio State. 14 million people turned into that game. You let either one of those teams in there versus Clemson, I bet you're sitting at 9 or 10 million. Texas, Oklahoma, 10.16 million people like in there. You let Texas into the playoff too, and they beat Georgia like they did. There's going to be a lot of viewers in there. So my overall take for the season: expand it to 8 teams, cut out all this 6-6 crap, make it so you at least have to win 8 games to make a playoff or make it to the bowl games. World will be a lot happier, and cut out those 2 weeks, like December 15th to Christmas time. I don't care about any of those bowls. None of them. Get out of here.
I definitely agree with that. And to your point, Mike, about expanding the playoff to more teams, you see it, Mike, in these games that people deem great bowl games, and they are, the Peach Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, Sugar Bowl, these games, the New Year's Six Bowl games. Guys are still sitting out of these games. So, that tells you guys really don't care. I get it. They really don't care and it sounds contradictory. They really don't care unless they plan for a championship. So why don't the NCAA just do all of us a favor and do the same thing? To your Michigan point, we both picked Florida, I think, in that game just because all the people were missing.
Yep. They had 4 defensive starters out.
Yeah, there was missing Bush, their defensive captain, the linebacker, the 2-time All-American, the 2-time Big Ten Player of the Year. That's the guy that they was missing. Rashawn Gary, a guy who's probably going to be a top 20 pick in the NFL draft this year. They were missing him. Hinkton, their running back, 1,300 carries this year. 200 and something carries this year. They were missing him. You won't get that if you can get to extend the playoffs. Because as you said, teams like Michigan will be in the playoffs. Teams like Ohio State will be in the playoffs. Teams like Georgia will be in the playoffs. And then there'll be no excuse then. Because I hate people that give excuses. And then I think these bowl games, quote unquote, if my air quotes here, meaningless, that's their excuse to say, oh, that's why we didn't play like we played all year, because it was meaningless. And I said it all year, Mike. The people that talk about the SEC like they do, Mike, they don't realize that there are good teams in every other conference. And the SEC is just like every other conference. Top heavy, and the rest are mediocre. And anybody can be beat on any given day.
And just like that, guys, we're out. Have a good day.